Hey everyone, welcome back to Yellow Jacket Garage Radio. This is podcast number 2. So this is still me trying to learn how to do this whole podcast thing, so please bear with me. And today I want to talk about rare. I've been kind of in the social medias and looking around and watching comments and whatnot, and I was just kind of thinking about it. I was like, you know what constitutes rare? And what constitutes rare from people that may be thinking rare, or are they thinking unique? It's kind of a difficult thing because it's really a personalized look at things. And so I would say what is rare, and then add to that what is rare to me. Now, to me personally, when I think rare, like a rare car is a car that the manufacturer only produced a few of in a specific type or whatnot. Like, look at the old school Copo Camaros. You know, you use the central office production order and you order this car, and so you get all these kind of unique features. You get the big block, you get the whatever it is that you're after, and so you get a super car, super performance out of these cars, and it turns out to be only so many of them produced in certain ways, and so you get a rare car. It seems like, you know, back in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, there were a lot of cars that were available to be ordered, but a lot of people didn't take advantage of the options list to order those cars. So those cars that had the rarer options, the things that were ordered, like the big engines and the manual transmissions and the different things like that, yeah, they're rare cars because although it was available to be produced by the manufacturer, they simply weren't produced because people didn't order them. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people didn't know that those options were available to them, or they simply weren't willing to spend the extra couple $100, things like that. Now, in some of like the ZL1 Corvette, the L88 option, what did it like doubled the price of the car? And so that's why a lot of people were like, I don't think I'm going to do that because, you know, you're spending twice as much on a car that has, for all intents and purposes, big engine, and that's it. And at the time, people didn't think they needed it. But tell you what, if I was of driving age at that point and had the money to order one of them, I sure would have, if it was a no object type of a thing. But who has that foresight to realize that these cars down the road are going to be worth as much as they are? Certainly nobody from back then, or just a few people. So that to me is rare. Rare is more of an idea from some respects because rare is, well, rare to me is different than rare to you or rare to somebody else. Now, I like to look at it from a perspective of rare versus unique. One car might be rare while another car might be unique. The other day I saw some discussion about, somebody said, well, my car is rare because it's one of whatever. Well, it was one of whatever because that person had made modifications to the car. Well, if I go in and scribble my autograph on the dash of my car, then it's a one of one, right? No, it just means that I got scribble happy and I had a spare crayon, and so I wrote on my car. But that's the difference. To me, if it's something that you do as a modification, it's not a rare car, it's a unique car. Because when your manufacturer does it, they have X number of those that get built that way. That makes it rare. You add whatever exhaust system, or you do cam and tune, or you do whatever it is you do to it, that's not making the car more rare, that's making it more unique. That's maybe making the car perform better than stock, or perform better than the next guy's car, which is fantastic, but it still makes it unique and not rare, because in my personal opinion, we can't make a car more rare than it already is unless we go out and find all the other ones that are just like it and run them off a cliff. And that's, not that smart. So there we go. Rare versus unique. Does rare add value? Now, in the purest sense, obviously it does. Rare cars are worth a lot more money because there are only so many of them. It's a finite quantity of these older cars. Does unique add value? Well, it depends. You look at me doing things to my car makes it unique. That doesn't necessarily add value. For an example of a unique car that has value, look at the Volkswagen that now I'm at a loss for what her name is, but anyway, the 60s Janis Joplin, that's who it is. Janis Joplin customized her Volkswagen Bug, and that car was not rare because Volkswagen made a bazillion of them. But that car was unique because it was Janis Joplin's own rendition of what the car should look like. And then when she passed, of course, the car became a collector's piece and exorbitantly more valuable to collectors. And so that's a case where unique becomes valuable. But by and large, I'm not anybody famous, and so my cars are probably never going to be more valuable because they're unique because I owned them. I've seen, what is it? I'm trying to remember what car it was, but anyway, that was owned by the Apple founder Steve Jobs. His car was whatever it was, Mercedes or whatever, but it still had the phone in it, and everybody thought it was kind of cool, and that whole factor there. It wasn't a Mercedes. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, he had the car, and because it used to be his car, it has a little bit more of that value for being unique. It's not a one-of-a-kind car because there's a whole bunch of them made, but it was a car that belonged to someone else, and so that's the added value to the car. Steve McQueen race cars, they add a lot more value to them because of who owned them, and so that gives that a little bit of a provenance. But anyway, enough of that. I want to jump into here real quick and take a look at some of these cars. So I jumped online and I looked at several different articles and whatnot, and I found this one. It's at carlogos.org, and the 10 rarest cars in the world. And so we'll go back into it a little bit with what is rare. I mean, the Oldsmobile F88. Okay, these were not produced for the public, but there were 4 of them that were manufactured. So they manufactured 4 of them, and essentially they were the first V8 Corvette, because the Corvettes at this point in time didn't have V8s in them; they had the inline 6. And so this car is it's a 54 Oldsmobile F88. There were 4 of these produced with V8s. They had the the 250 horsepower. I think it was a 283 or whatever it was, a small V8. But anyway, they had the V8, and so they are rare because there were only 4 of them produced, but they weren't production models. They were basically just prototypes. Now the Maybach Excelero is an $8 million car. They were produced, but they were, because of the price tag, they were so expensive that their exclusivity prevented most people from actually owning them. Let me see. I'm trying to see the number of them. I don't remember seeing where there was a number of them manufactured, but anyway, they're super expensive. The Bugatti Type 41. These were supposed to be manufactured, but they were manufactured for royalty, and so the European royals, it's kind of one of those things of, is this car rare? Well, it's rare because it was intended to be rare, because you're not going to sell this car to everybody, because then it's not exclusive, which is what the royals and the rich folks back then wanted, was to be exclusive. But in today's money, $9.7 million a copy. So 53, the Jag XK120C, great car. It's a race car, and so yeah, they're exclusive. Today's they're worth better than $13 million, but they're a race car. And so all these older race cars, 50s, 60s, 70s, things like that, they have that value. Is it the unique value or is it the rarity value? Well, they're not intended to really be road cars per se, but because of the few of them that were produced, they're rare and they're worth a lot of money. Same thing with the 917 Porsche. They're $14 million these days, but again, they were purpose-built race cars for the 24-hour Le Mans. And this is one of those Steve McQueen cars too, by the way. So a lot of money. A lot of money is what they're worth, but they're not something that you and I can go out, or could have in the day gone out and bought. The Aston Martin DB4. these cars were built from the factory, and back then in the early 60s, if you were looking for one of these, you could actually go out and buy one. They're super rare, less than 20 of them left, but they were available for sale. You could have gone out and bought one. DVR1. These are, again, race cars, so it's not like something you can go out and just purchase. You can't run down to the Aston Martin dealership and buy one of these, or in 56 you couldn't do that. You would have to order one, and hopefully that you would get the factory race car and all yada yada yada, and so you get your car. Now, the Ferrari N61, the 250 GT California, today they're $18 million. Back then, you could go find one and buy one. You'd probably have to order one or whatnot, but this was Alfa Romeo's race division. Ennio for Ennio. I'm pretty sure they meant to say Enzo. I never heard of Ennio Ferrari, unless that was like another girlfriend of John Lennon that I'm not aware of. But anyway, they were exceedingly rare. The Ferrari 250 Testarossa, that's another race car. And so, yes, this list has a lot of race cars that are on it, and those are not really designed for the average person. Again, here we go. The rarest car in the world is the Ferrari 250 Gran Turismo Omologato, a rare diamond designed and cared for by Enzo Ferrari himself. I remember when this car sold at auction, I was pretty impressed by the whole thing. I thought it was kind of neat to see this car sell, and the money that it went for and all that good stuff. But anyway, crazy stuff. But a lot of race cars on that list. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with the rare air cars, and what, half the list or less are actually cars that could have been ordered. So let's go ahead and take a look at unique. Let's look at the unique cars. This is the supercars.net. It's a list of the coolest and most unique cars. 25 coolest, most unique cars ever made. And this list is more of just the cars. And so they're unique, they're cool, they're whatever. A lot of them, again, are going to be prototypes. This one here, Gordon Murray, the designer of McLaren F1, he wants to put out a driver-focused car. So these cars, when they, if they're available, 2.4 million pounds a piece. And so 2.4 million pounds is what, roughly close to $4 million a copy. It's going to be expensive, but it should be a fun car if it's ever available. It's a, for all intents and purposes, prototype at this point. Oh yeah, the DeLorean, the DMC-12. Now these cars, they look cool. They're a neat car. I've seen several of them in person. They look really, really fast, but never were. The irony of the DeLorean is in the movie that 88 miles an hour was the ability to, jump time and all that good stuff. And on a good day, going downhill with a fast tow truck, the DeLoreans would struggle to make 88 miles an hour. Anyway, still cool looking car. So the Lancia Bertone, this one is, again, it's a prototype, and so it's a cool car. It's not available to you and I, and so how we look at that as a unique car? Yeah, it's unique because it's a prototype and that it'll never be on the road that you can buy it, but kind of cool. So this one here, the old Tesla Roadster. Now, these are available to people. You can actually go out and buy one, or could. I'm not sure if the Roadster is still available. I think so, but I don't follow Tesla enough to know. The most famous thing about the Tesla Roadster was, of course, the jokes about Elon Musk's expired hooker in the trunk of the one that's soaring through space now. Anyway, let's move on. The Porsche Taycan, neat car, not for me. I'm not a fan of the four-door Porsches. I just don't care for the way they look. Fast, sure, I guess, whatever, but it just doesn't appeal to me. A Porsche four-door should be an SUV, which I think those ones look just fine. This one's not my thing, so we'll move on. Again, General Motors Firebird 1XP21. This is an idea. I mean, this is a car that the whole point behind it was to provide inspiration and just to have fun with. Now, the Latuve Electrique. This was the first EV that was more commercially available. I know back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we had electric vehicles that were available and you could tool them around town and whatnot, but it was really rudimentary, and it was not like this one was the first one that was really designed to be actually driven and used. You're not going to drive it far because of what it is, but it's one of those things that's kind of neat. It's unique. Does it have any value? Not to me, but cool stuff. Anyway, the Buick Centurion in '56. This one was kind of another Cadillac inspired, scratch that, Corvette inspired car, but this one is a 4-seat two-door, and so kind of neat stuff. You could actually see a lot of the more space-age ideas designed into the car. Pretty car. It's too bad it didn't go into production. The roof, I think, would have been something back in the day, but man, I can't imagine this thing would have been like an oven driving down the highway, because I know the clear roof on my Corvette gets kind of toasty in there if I have it on there too much. Anyway, the Voisin C25 Aerodyne. I know they're produced. You could buy one. They're unique. Not very visibly appealing in my opinion, but that's just me. They look like the Citroen Visa, I think it is. But yeah, just horrible cars in my opinion. The Norman Tim Special. Interesting, unique, certainly. Rare, I don't know about all that. Now, this one is the Bugatti Type 57. I think these are a neat looking car. They're kind of ugly in their own right, but they're a neat looking car. But if you look at the way they're designed, the way they're put together, it's just a lot of thought went into it. You know, I imagine the big engine underneath the hood of that car because how long it is. And, you know, you're going to be pretty cozy in that cockpit. What was that? 123 miles an hour in 1935. Man, that was screaming. I'd be afraid the paint was coming off. Now, the Reliant Robin. I've never seen one of these in person, and but my only experience with seeing one really at all was on watching. Oh, I can't remember the name of the show, but not the Grand Tour, but previous to that. Anyway, watching the three Brits roll these over and try not to kill themselves. Yeah, it's kind of fun. The Amphicar. I've seen several of these in person. They're neat little cars. They're very definitely unique cars. I understand they're kind of maintenance intensive if you're actually going to put them in the water. But kind of cool and kitschy, but that's about it. So yeah, that's unique. Does it make it valuable? I don't think so, because I don't know that those Amphicars really sell for that much. Go into the Ghia Streamline. That's more of a exercise in styling and ambitious performance. If this car had been, and I could actually see it, because to me, I see a lot of the design cues. It looks like, it was the Studebaker. I don't remember the name of the Studebaker, but a little bit of the Studebaker Lark, maybe the Golden Hawk, and then the little bit older Studebaker I see in this car, and it's actually kind of a pretty cool looking car in my opinion. But again, prototype. The BMW Isetta, this is almost like the LaBouffe that kind of goes in with it, but this one is gas powered. It's designed to be small and like a little runabout in town or whatnot, kind of, you know, kind of like some places you go that they're using golf carts. So same basic principle, because you're not going to take this thing out on the highway and go anywhere with it, and if you do, then good luck. This one, the Cadillac Cyclone, super cool car in my opinion. I really dig it. Looks like an F-105 Thunder Chief kind of in the back of it. Looks like a F-86 cockpit kind of a thing, and then you've got the missiles or the rockets on the front of it. The car just looks fast, and being that it's a Cadillac makes it a little bit cool too. The Stout Scarab. I've heard of these, I've seen these on TV and different shows and whatnot, and it's kind of an interesting looking car. Not going to say that it's something that I'd be interested in, but it's kind of a neat looking little car. The BMW, the Gina, the model, this one, you know, this is an 08, and so I'm looking at the 08, but I look at current BMW coupes, And I see a lot of these lines that are showing up in the current cars, and so it's kind of neat. You kind of see something that's a little bit older. That's 15 years past, and now from when this car was done, 10 years later, they have some of this design actually into some of their cars. Kind of cool. Tasco prototype. Well, it's a prototype, so that makes it rare, unique. Sure. Car's ugly. You can see a lot of the aircraft-inspired design in it, but beyond that, it's one of those things. The Devil 16. This car I see a lot of race car, and that's really what it is. It's a hypercar that they intend on doing. What is it? 5,000 horsepower V16 hypercar. It's supposed to be a Bugatti Veyron beater or Slayer. Okay, well, if they can get it off the ground and actually get it running, I bet the car is probably far too expensive for any normal human to own. But then you look at it, it's based in Dubai, so there's a lot more money there than they probably need to have. But hey, more power to them. Mazda Cosmo. This looks like a combination of several different cars. I see a little bit of a Fiat in the back and a little bit of Fiat in the front, and some Mercedes up here on the roof and Mercedes in the wheels. But anyway, unique. Definitely unique. The Chaparral 2J. Kind of a neat concept, a neat thought process, but pure race car. And so, cool? Sure. In what they tried to do and try to get away with, because this car has two engines. It's got a full-on V8 engine that's the propulsion for the vehicle, and then it's got another smaller engine that's designed to suck the air out from under the car using the skirting so that it generates a lot more downforce. And they generated enough downforce that it got banned. The Matra D-Jet. Never seen one of these. Honestly, not sure. I'm interested in seeing one of them because they look like basically a cheap Fiat. There we go. Now we're into something real. The Daytona or the Superbird. Super cool cars, super unique cars, and relatively rare cars. They're not overly rare, but they're pretty rare. So kind of cool stuff. The Thrust SSC. I can remember hearing about this car when they were setting the world land speed record and all that good stuff at 763 miles an hour. That's insane. And then the driver, Andy Green, said that driving the car was a massive handful bordering on uncontrollable. At 700 miles an hour, it would be something that was pretty easy to go from traveling fast to being a blip on the screen and being over and done with. So yeah, craziness. Those guys got some steel stuff. All right, now we're going to go into the American side of things. We're going to talk about the 10 rarest American cars ever made. Shelby Mustang GT500 Super Snake, 1967. They didn't say how many of these were made, but I know that it wasn't a great number, but really, really cool cars. A lot of stuff was done back then that was just super neat stuff. But that goes back into being able to go to the factory or go to the dealership and order a car. You order it from the factory, and they take it over to Shelby. Shelby does his thing, and it's still a Ford at the end of the day, but it's got all of this super stuff done on it, and it's still got a factory warranty. The Oldsmobile F88 pops up again. I really wish they had actually put these into production, because there would be another collectability option for some of the Corvette aficionados, because that would be a neat piece to have. The Gaylord Gladiator. It's rare because the brothers from Chicago blew a bunch of money that they inherited on something stupid. I think 4 of them were built. Good on them. The Cornet convertible Hemi. These cars are fantastic. I just love the Hemi cars. Love these rare Hemi convertible cars. Neat stuff. I read an article about this one a long time ago, and then this one, of course, was on an episode of Graveyard Cars, and so we get to see that one actually be restored. So kind of cool stuff. Trina King Cobra. This is another answer to the Dodge Daytona, the Plymouth Superbirds. They were going to try to race them against it, But NASCAR came back and finally said, no, we're not going to do this. And so only 3 prototypes were ever produced. And then Ford pulled the plug on it. So, I tell you what, that is an ugly car. That one's not terrible. That one looks like an Avanti to me with a Torino tail. Yeah, no thanks. Packard Panther. This is another concept car. The bottom half of the car looks great. The top half looks like it should have been the front part of a hearse, but whatever. That front end and that front end. This one doesn't look terrible, but it's a concept car. Now we're going to get back into some of these actual... The ZL1, you could go down to the dealership and you could actually order this car. If the folks that were buying cars at that point knew what this was going to be, I'm sure a lot more of them would have been produced, but man, I tell you what, I'd like to have one of those. Or I'd like to have both of them, to be totally honest, but whatever, it'd be great. What a car. What a fantastic car. The Super Snake. Who wouldn't like to have a Cobra? I know a lot of people would, me included. It's not in my budget. That's for dang sure. I mean, I guess you can go to Factory 5 and get a continuation car and all that good stuff now, which is kind of nice. Maybe building one of those would be fun, but having an original 427 Cobra would be something special. Here we go, back into my Hemi convertibles. The Plymouth Cuda was always kind of one of my favorite cars. I know I'm a Corvette guy and all that stuff, but the Cudas were... I always liked the way they looked. The 70, 71, 72. I just liked the way the cars looked. As a matter of fact, this yellow one, I had this as a poster on my bedroom wall when I was a kid. So, yeah, that says that. 14 and 70 and 7 and 71. Now, neat stuff. GTO Judge convertible, 17 total produced. Neat cars. Super rare. Yeah, they're rare. Those are also a car that because of what they are and the number produced, yeah, there's a lot of value in that car. So anyway, boy, this thing has sure drug on it. Looking at almost a half an hour for this thing, but anyway, hopefully this was interesting at the very least, and I'd be willing to bet that most of you have probably clicked away by now, which is fine. But this is just my attempts at learning how to do this whole podcast thing. I appreciate you being here, and if you're listening to at this point, thanks for being here, and holy cow, please comment down below, tell me what you thought, and anything along the way too. Throw stuff out there, tell me what you're thinking about it, and whether this is something more that you'd like to listen to, or but I'm probably going to continue doing this stuff for a little while, just because being a little bit injured, I can't work on cars in the shop, so I've got to do something, and this is it. So we'll talk about these things. But anyway, if you've got any ideas of things that you might want to discuss or have me talk about or do a little bit of research on, that's kind of cool ideas, then throw them in the comments down below. I'd be more than happy to take a look at it and maybe do something about it. But anyway, what is rare to you? What is unique to you? Is it a lot of the same stuff? Is it different stuff? Give me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. And by all means, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening so far. And as always, we'll see you on down the road.